Hi everyone, it's Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show. And today we'll be prepared to be wowed by the one and only Lisa Copeland. Let's say author, speaker, entrepreneur, corporate guru, well, and she's juggling so much more and building so much more. Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, and welcome to the Massimo Show. The objective of the Massimo Show is to share how you can maximize your personal, professional margin. That's right. Let's make more money in less time. Let's turn chaos into clarity, confusion into confidence, and income into real wealth. Along with sharing my insight on how I grew a multi-million-dollar professional business, we're going to bring you the expert advice from a variety of authors, consultants, and thought leaders who will provide the tools you need to maximize your own personal and professional margin. Welcome to the Massimo Show. Lisa, welcome to the Massimo Show.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. Lisa, there are some people out there, believe it or not, that don't know who you are. So we're going to get into who is Lisa. And let's start with the beginning. Let's start with high school. We always start with high school. Everyone can remember high school. Where were you and what were your passions?
Cheerleading. I was in Arlington, Texas, and I was on the drill team and I was a cheerleader. And so I didn't have a lot of ambition in high school, except that I just wanted to chase boys and be a cheerleader and go to fashion college, which is what I did.
Wow. I got to tell you, that's something I just find hard to believe. Not a lot of ambition being what you've achieved so far, and the more you have yet to come. So you went off to study fashion, and how did that go, and how did that transition to your next career?
So I was in college and I wrecked my car during college. And like any good fashion major, my parents were sending me the money for my car insurance, but I was not paying it. So I had a totaled car and no job. And so this was in the late 80s in Dallas, Texas, and no insurance. So I got a job selling cars because you got a free car to drive. You got a demo. And so that was my whole entree from being the world's greatest fashion designer to being in the automotive industry. Was a wrecked car because I was an irresponsible teenager.
So here you are in college, wreck your car, not insured, yet you become a car salesperson while in college?
I did. And it was funny. I actually wrote about it, I guess, in my second book, but they did not want to hire me. They were like, no way, no girls allowed. And the man I've been married to for 32 years had just graduated from college. And he was kind of in a layover job selling cars until his other job started. So he's the one that told me I should sell cars. And he's the one who made the introduction to me to the managers there. And they were like, nope. And somehow, some way, I talked my way into it. So I think that was my real sales job. My first sales job right there was getting the sales job.
Okay. So I guess the question is, how'd you do?
I did really well. And I did well because I was dumb. I didn't know anything. So I was smart enough to listen to my managers, and I did everything that they told me to do. You know, I had never even been into a car dealership when I walked in to go get a job. I mean, my dad had always bought my cars. They were provided for me. So, I mean, I walk in and I'm like, wow, what am I supposed to do? So I just kind of learned then you can fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. So you actually, and then from that faking to making, it's a man's world. I mean, you said it yourself, they didn't want to hire you. Mm-hmm. So is it fair to say support was lacking?
It was lacking, except for this one gentleman, and he's still alive today. He's 92 years old, and we still keep up with him. His name was Ernie Bays. And back then he was probably 60 something years old. And he took me under his wing and he helped me a lot. He was a friend of my husband's and he helped me a lot. And he made sure that the guys were nice to me and he really taught me the ropes. And I'm forever grateful.
So your parents send you off to college to focus on fashion. Mm-hmm. And then you turn around and say, well, now I'm selling cars.
Oh, they were horrified. I mean, horrified. Yes. But the piece of the story that I missed in this, because that's the big piece to my success, is that I went to my dad, told him what I had done, and my dad said, kid, you need to figure it out. Like, I gave you a car, I'm giving you a college education, I paid your insurance, and you screwed up. So you need to figure it out. So in the mid 80s, there was no public transportation in Dallas, or if there was, I certainly didn't know where it was. It was not in North Dallas, I can tell you that. And so I had to figure it out. So when I called them to say, hey, I have figured it out, I'm going to sell cars and I get a free car to drive. And then all of a sudden they started backpedaling. Well, we'll get you a car. And I'm like, no. I have figured it out. So.
Okay. So you start selling cars and you're under the guidance of a mentor and you're moving forward. Does this go beyond college or do you continue?
Yes.
What's the next step for you?
Yeah. So I did really well. I ended up finishing college and then I did really well and I got promoted to finance and I did that for a few years. I actually did it for several years. And then I became a finance platform director and all kinds of, so I stayed in the car business my first go around about 12 years. Then I had my second child and I just did not want to do nights and weekends anymore. It was too much. I was giving up too much and it just wasn't worth it. So I got in the mortgage business because I had such a deep background in finance and F&I because of automotive. Mortgages were easy. So that was probably in 1997 or 98.
Okay.
Yeah. And I did really well. And within 2 years, I started my own mortgage company that is still in business today.
Now, wow. Well, that's incredible feat in its own that your 30-year mortgage company is incredible. But let's talk about the transition. So fashion design, car sales, F&I, finance, running in the automotive dealership, use that talent, those skill sets, transition to now first working for, and then did you work for initially or did you actually go out and build your own mortgage company right away?
Well, so I worked for a mortgage company for a couple of years, and then I realized how easy it really was. And then I became a mortgage broker. So I learned a lot. So I was a production manager. I ran teams. So I learned the back end of a mortgage company by running a big one, a company called North American Mortgage, probably one of the top 5 at the time in the country. And so, at that point I was like, oh, I can do this. So I'm very entrepreneurial.
No doubt.
Yeah, very, very much so. So yeah. And then, so I did that until 2009. And then in the height of just all the uncertainty in the markets and in the country, I was given the opportunity to come back to the car business and relaunch Fiat back to America. And so I went to Detroit. It's just a crazy story. Like you can't even make this stuff up. And I went to Detroit and I think I was the only one in the room that saw the vision of that little car. And of course, it was the worst time in the world in America. The thing we did have going for us is that gas was sitting at about $5 a gallon.
Yes.
When this happened. So, it was not as hard to get the consumers to change their mindset to move into a little car. Whereas when gas is sitting here in Texas, it's about $1.74 a gallon for premium today. So it wasn't as hard to pivot the customer, even though, the first time Fiat left America, they left us fix it again. So I was the first retailer in the country to open.
Okay, but I understand the automotive background. So moving towards Fiat and moving from Texas to Detroit, but why you? What was it that someone said, just like when you interviewed for the car dealership, why would they take on you? You had finance background, you sold cars. This is a completely different thing. This is corporate America, Detroit. Fiat Chrysler. So what was it that they said, we want her? What was it?
Well, so I had a friend and a partner that was a car dealer here in town, and he wanted to be one of the dealers considered. And so he came to me and said, hey, you're great at marketing and stuff like that. He said, there needs to be a proposal written to Fiat about how we would do things different. It's basically a blank slate. So I took a leave from my own company. I accepted the consulting position to write this proposal to present to Detroit, and they accepted it. And they liked ours the best. So we were the first dealer to open in the country. I think the network grew to about 240 at its height. And we opened up in a high-end shopping center in Austin, Texas, outdoor high-end, which had never been done before either. So Tesla copied us, not the other way around.
Tesla is now.
But I have a whole story behind Tesla, how they'd read about us in automotive news. And they came in to talk to me. And at that point, that was like in 2000, maybe 11, early 12. And they did not know who we were, right? And I didn't know who they were. So it was just very interesting. So I was like, oh yeah, sure, come to the mall, whatever. So they ended up being literally across the mall from me and down. And that was the first Tesla store outside.
That's incredible. They're
Isn't that
out there
crazy?
everywhere outside today. It's
Yeah.
just, they are. Let's talk about a couple of things here in this journey that you're continuing to build. And we're not going to get to where you are today yet. But during your automotive years and your experiences, you wrote a book called, was it Car Buyer Her Way? Am I accurate there?
Did Car Buying Her Way, the fierce girl's guide to the car of her dreams.
So help us out there. Help us out with your book shares. There's a difference in car buying from a female's perspective. And I will tell you, there's nothing worse. I always feel so sorry for the car salesperson who, when my wife and I go into a dealership, they talk to me.
Yeah.
I sit there and go, wait a minute, she's buying the car. Don't talk to me, because my wife won't put up with it, quite frankly.
Good for her. Good for her.
She won't. So she's walked out before. It's like, oh, you messed up, buddy. You just didn't talk to her. So what is it? What is it about car buying her way? And you have to buy the book, ladies and gentlemen, if you really understand it. But can you give us some snippets, some high-end overview of the key elements and principles?
Yeah, I wrote it because I was a female car dealer. And in 2012, my team broke the world sales record. And so we got a visit by Mr. Sergio Marchioni, and who was at that point the chairman of the board of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Ferrari, Maserati, and Alfa Romeo. And, he and I had a great talk. And he said, I think that you do better because you're a woman. And I said, no, I do better because I understand the consumer, and I understand that over 50% of the consumers are women, and we know how to treat women. So there's that, because I firmly believe that women consumers got us to the point where we broke the world sales record. So I wrote the book a little bit about my journey, but just really about car buying tips for everybody. And so I think I wrote it 2 years ago maybe. And they're tips for anybody, whether you're a man or you're a woman. And it just gets down to, at the end of the day, women are the most powerful consumers in the world, but why are we treated so poorly? When women influence 80 to 90% of all major consumer purchases, whether it's electronics, it's education, it's healthcare, it's automotive, it's real estate, whatever it is, but we're treated like second-class citizens. So I literally wrote the book over a weekend. I was just fed up, and I just sat down and wrote it. It's a pretty big book. It's about 40,000 words, but I just kind of put out, 25 years of experience. And being a female car dealer, I also had the opportunity to relaunch Alfa Romeo to America, being the first dealer to do that also. And so these Italian men would come in who've been waiting for this car to come back for 20 years. And they'd say, I want to talk to the dealer. And I said, I am the dealer. And they'd be like, well, no. I don't want to talk to you. What do you know about cars? I'm like, I don't need to know anything about cars, except that I own 20 Alfa Romeos out here. And if you want to buy one, you're going to talk to me. And if you want to fix it, I'm going to take you back to my Alfa Romeo tech. And so I just, I saw the struggle, especially being an Italian car dealer, of the bias from the male consumers. And especially of such an iconic brand like Fiat and Alfa Romeo, you tended to have an older consumer, a much more brand loyal consumer, and they wanted no part of a woman car dealer. Now, I will say this, we were the #1 store in the country for both Fiat and Alfa Romeo just about every month that I owned that store. So, we worked our way through that bias, but it's real and it exists. So
I can imagine it's probably a stronger bias, and this could be a general statement, so I'd be careful I say this, maybe a stronger bias in the Alfa Romeo line than most lines, right?
yes, Alfa Romeo, Ferrari, Maserati, right? It's a very, and I understand it to some level, they were very iconic, or they are very iconic brands. And in the beginning, we had the early adopters who had been waiting years and years and years for these cars to come back on the market, the Alfa Romeo. And so I got to meet a lot of really wonderful people along the way, and a lot of really amazing clients that are still friends of mine. But that being said, they expected a man who was 60-something years old to come out, who was a car buff and an enthusiast like they were, and an expert on Italian cars. And I wasn't that person. I was just the car dealer. And I loved the Alfa Romeo, all of that, but it was not my life. And I had not waited 20 years for it to come back on US soil. So we had to reset expectations, to say the least. That's the nicest way I can put it.
That's an excellent way to put it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be back in a minute with Lisa Copeland, and we're only halfway through the journey. There's a lot more to Lisa, and she continues to adapt, evolve, and be a leader in so many things. And we're going to share that with you when we come back with the Massimo Show. Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show. And oh boy, am I pumped. My new book, Knowing Isn't Doing, well, when it launched, it hit #1. That's right. Top-selling sales book in the entire country on Amazon.com. We're so excited to share many of our proprietary Massimo methods to allow our readers to start finally building that business and the life they've always desired. To get your own copy or learn more, visit www.knowingisn'tdoing.com. Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show and the fabulous Lisa Copeland. What a journey. What an entrepreneur. There's so much more to unwrap. So, Lisa, I got to go back to your original book. I know Car Buying Her Way was your second book. Can you tell me about the first book and why you wrote it?
So the first book was Crushing Mediocrity, 10 Ways to Rise Above the Status Quo. And I co-authored it with my best friend, Renee Bangelsdorf, who is the CEO of Charlie Bravo Aviation and one of the top jet brokers in the world. And she's number 2 or 3 for all women in the world. She also sits on the Women in Aviation Board appointed by Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, under President Trump. So she's somebody who's really come in and broken glass ceilings. And when I sold my dealership in 2016, we wanted to tell the stories of, what she and I have gone through in male-dominated industries. But we tied it together. The book's not just for women. In fact, men like the book probably even more than women do because they get it a little bit more, right? Okay. But it's really just 10 ways. Like, what are the 10 things you need to do not to sit in the middle of the pack? And there's nothing wrong with being in the middle of the pack, right? Mediocrity is rampant in this country. But for somebody who wants to go out and build a business and somebody who wants to go out and become an entrepreneur, mediocrity, you will fail. You will absolutely fail if you have a mediocre mindset. And so we tried to give people pretty easy 10-step way to go from here to winning, for lack of a better word.
I want our listeners to buy the book, and that's what we want to do because we can't have the capacity to review all 10. Is it sequential steps or is it just 10 aspects?
No, 10 aspects.
So, Lisa, can you share one?
Sure. One thing? I think chapter 1's the most important because I start most of my books and my keynotes and everything with this. And it's, do you believe that what you do matters? Because if you don't believe that what you do matters, then it doesn't matter. And so, chapter 1 is talking about defining your underlying purpose. Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Because if you don't know why you do what you do, when times get tough, you'll quit. And there were so many times during that whole launch of Fiat and, the brand has just always struggled. And me as the leader of the brand, it was so, and the leading dealer in the country, there were so many times that I had better offers. I could have gone and done something different, but I always had to go back to the fact that I did what I did so that I could revolutionize the auto industry. So I could show an industry that women, minorities, and millennials were worth having in this industry and that we were very powerful and very important to the success of the auto industry. So really just to change the perception of the auto industry. It had been easy for me to go buy a Ford store because they were all throwing them at me. Here, take our franchise. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to stay the course. And so I think that that's really important. And I think that a lot of people stop 3 Feet from Gold, which my very dear friend Sharon Lecter co-authored that book. But it's true. It's like you're almost there. And then you go, I quit. And if you just would have stuck it out, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the trials, tribulations, and success I had launching that Fiat brand.
I'm thinking that traffic accident really was a catalyst to an incredible career.
Right? It really was. Yeah. I didn't even talk about the fact that during that traffic accident, I met my husband. So, yeah. So anyways, I was 17 and he was 23, I guess. Yeah. Because I was a freshman and he had just graduated from college. So
let's talk about the next evolution. Of course, pre-pandemic, you were book solid with speaking engagements. Yeah. How did you become this national speaker? I mean, these corporate jobs and success athletes are great pedigree to be being a speaker, but how do you make that jump? And was that your next passion?
A little bit. I loved it. So about 10 years ago, I hired a speaking coach, Steve Siebold, and then he became my personal coach and just a very, very dear friend of mine. And he really taught me the art of the keynote speech. And that was before, I think it's before I even got back in the automotive industry. I even felt like then I had something I wanted to say. But my speaking career didn't really take off. It took off after my team broke the world sales record in 2012, and we picked up a lot of national press. And so then I was picked up by an agent out of New York.
And when you speak, for our listeners, what audiences do you speak to? What topics do you speak about?
Yeah. So I'm usually hired by the VP of sales, and it's usually about breaking glass ceilings, crushing sales records, and getting unstuck. The majority of sales organizations today, and I don't care if you're selling software, sales services, insurance, mortgages, real estate, whatever it is, it's a head game. Sales is a head game. And you have got to know how to push through mediocre days or you're going to get stuck. And if you get stuck, then the organization gets stuck. And so that's the reason that I get brought in, is to help sales organizations get unstuck.
Okay. And then the pandemic hits, and we've had
March 13th.
Yep. We forget, right?
Well, I was in Chicago. I was speaking for North American Van Lines, and I was going to stay and meet with the leadership the next day. And a meeting planner came to me and said, "We're getting you home tonight. Chicago's going to be shut down in the morning." I was like, by that pandemic? Like, that's what? Corona? I mean, at that point, like, we just hadn't heard much about it. And all of a sudden, boom, but I'm in Chicago, and it was a lot more serious in Chicago at that point than it was in Texas.
Yeah, I can understand that. And we've had the good fortune, including yourself, having amazing speakers, Jeb Blunt, Waldo Waldman, Andy Idris, and the like. All those folks have been with us. There you go. So Jeb's incredible. But they all had to adapt, because let's face it, you're not going to get a gig speaking on stage. You're not, just not. Right. You've adapted pretty significantly. So can you share with the audience when you realized that the gigs are gone? What do I do now? And take us through that transition.
Several of them did move to virtual, and that's fine. But you know what it's like when you're on the stage and you're there with the audience, and you've got the energy, and that's what I love about speaking. It isn't even getting across my message. It's about just, being so full of that audience and the energy, and knowing that if one person hears what you say and does what you say, that, it could change their life. And so I decided to get a real estate license. I was like, what the heck? In Texas, at least, real estate was deemed, and still is, always has been, an essential service. Mm-hmm. And I just needed something to do. My kids are grown, and I couldn't sit home and worry about what tomorrow held, because that's so against everything that I go out and I teach and I talk about. And so I got my real estate license pretty quickly, in about 4 weeks. And I was talking to my agent in New York, and I just said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing." And so they introduced me to Tariq El Moussa from HGTV, and kind of the rest is history. And so Tariq has got a brokerage that is brokered by eXp Realty called The Agency, by Tariq El Moussa. And we've just had an amazing time bringing on agents and selling. And in fact, I'm going to be doing some live stuff with Tariq here this week. And it's been amazing. And that's what I believe, that is, if you keep your eyes open and you don't stop, you don't quit, you don't go into a panic, that the universe is going to open up your next opportunity. And of everything I've done in my whole career, I like this the best. I do. I love working with Tariq and the team, and I love working with people. I love helping people pivot right now. I mean, we're building a global real estate team. Literally, we just opened South Africa and India and UK, Mexico, Puerto Rico. Oh gosh, we have Canada, all the US. Anyways, but to be able to help people around the world literally pivot. India, we just opened India last week, to help people around the world be able to pivot, because jobs have been eliminated. People have said, "I'm not going to go back and do that anymore." They've reassessed their life and their values. So everybody's got to have a place to live. So it really takes all of my greatest superpowers and it puts them together. So it's been fantastic.
Let me tell you, you got an amazing list of superpowers. So I'm going to try to see if I got this straight. So here we go. Ready? Cheerleader, fashion, car accident, car sales, finance, mortgage. I want to go to mortgage, Fiat, Alfa Romeo, speaking, and now real estate. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's it. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my next 25 years, but I'm kind of liking what I've got going on right now. So I think I'm going to stick with it.
Well, this show is all about entrepreneurs creating margin in their lives, both personally and professionally. And certainly you've achieved that. So where can people get more of Lisa?
I think the easiest way to find me is 2 places. One, on social media, Instagram, real_Lisa Copeland. and at my website, lisacopeland.com, which is my speaker site. But it's a great way to be able to get a hold of me and find out what I've got going on. And I'm just praying that, in 2021, some of this stuff opens back up and we'll be back on the road speaking in some venues. I mean, we're already hearing that a few of them are looking to open up, potentially at least bring us in on the stages and, kind of like do what they're doing at football fields and bringing a part of the audience and then just using cameras and WebEx and things like that. But actually us being in the building on the stage, at least with a partial audience. So fingers crossed.
So while you just said that this current role is using your superpowers better than any other role, it sounds like really to the heart, you're a speaker and that's what you really enjoy. And you can't wait to get back on the circuit. Is that a fair assumption?
It's a fair assumption. It has been, so I've been off since March, which I'm not used to because I'm used to being on a plane once a week, twice a week, every other week, whatever, a lot. I do realize that I feel much more settled in my soul. I'm much more calm and I'm not as helter-skelter and jumping on and off planes. So I don't miss that as much. So I don't know that I will accept as many speaking opportunities. And I don't think I could with my current role. So I think I might, I might be a little more selective, and selective meaning it isn't even about the money. It's about who the audience is and what kind of effect, right? And I love sales organizations. I think the worst keynote I ever gave, and it was such a disaster. Some company hired me to talk to all their engineers. This was a few years ago. And I didn't like them and they didn't like me. It was crazy. Like I got nothing off the audience. But when I talk to a group of salespeople, like we are like, eyeball to eyeball, because I've sold everything. So I know what they're up against. I know what a bad day is. I know what a bad customer is. I know what a bad boss is. So, I mean, I can really, really help them, I think, see the light and go to the next level of success. So I love to do that.
Well, and let me tell you, we love having you on the Massimo Show. What an amazing guest you have been. You've given so much value to our audience. But everyone, as I always tell you, what Lisa did was she spelled out exactly some steps you need to take care of to run your own business and create the own life you want for yourself. But that's just knowledge, and knowing isn't doing. So go out and start implementing, and maybe you too can get in a car accident soon and have your entire career change just like that. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everybody.
I want to thank you for listening to this version of the Massimo Show. And please, please go out and share this with your friends, your colleagues. Heck, share it with your dog. Just share it. And more importantly, just give me some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We all grow from understanding what our audience wants to hear. So until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show. Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Group. And did you know over the last 12 plus years, we've worked with thousands of independent contractors, solopreneurs, and small business owners in helping them achieve the business and the life that they've always desired. To learn more how we could possibly help you achieve your goals, please visit www.massimo.coach. That's www.massimo.coach.